everyone. Welcome to the Nassau County Interim Finance Authority Directors Meeting. I'm Richard Kessel. First, we don't have any committee meetings, so I'll go right to the regular board meeting. We'll take a roll call. Mo
Meggi, good evening.
Richard Kessel.
Chris Wright.
John Zazza.
Okay, so we do have a quorum. First item on the agenda is approval of the minutes of the directors' meeting on March 19, 2024. Do I hear a motion? Chris Wright. Second?
Mo, yeah.
Mo, second. Are there any changes, omissions, or corrections to the minutes? Seeing none, all those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay. Next is a contract consideration, and Mark, you're going to come up, and we'll do one at a time since we got three of them.
Can I suggest we do the two H&L together and the agreement separate?
Sure, okay. So let's do agreement Pedersen first, alone, all right?
Sure, yes. So just to begin, the three contracts that are going to be presented today are with the Department of Public Works, and they all are going to be funded with capital proceeds. Therefore, approval of these items does not guarantee future borrowing authorization. Item 373, Greenman and Peterson. This is a contract of, this is one of 5 awarded contracts for on-call civil engineer services, site development design, and support services for the civil engineer and site development unit in DPW. As of today, the Board of Directors has approved 3 contracts, actually in the last meeting we held. The contract is valued at $10 million and is for 4 years from the notice to proceed with a 2-year renewal option. Are there any questions?
10's the total, it's not 10 a year?
No, 10 is the total.
And can different amounts be spent in different years?
Yes.
Up to $10 million?
Yes, up to 10, yes.
So this is one of, similar to the last few meetings, it's part of a panel of potential service providers. You have a few that are all up to 10 million on call?
Correct,
Is
that is correct, but I'll let Ken explain.
Okay.
I was told to come up to the mic if I had to speak.
Yeah. For the large viewing public.
Yeah, so yes, so these are the civil panels. I mean, over the last couple of meetings, you've also passed a lot of traffic ones,
Right.
which is a different grouping, but this is the civil panels.
Got it.
Can you identify yourself just for the record, so we have it on the record?
Ken Arnold, Commissioner of Public Works.
Thank you, Ken. Good to see you.
Chairman, I'll move we approve it.
Okay, I'll second it. Any further discussion on the part of the board?
No.
Okay, all those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, motion carries. Now we've got 2 county contracts for H&L contracting. I'll let Martha explain them.
Okay, item 383-24 and 384-24, both are contracts with H&L Contracting. The contracts were awarded under 2 different competitive bidding process. Both contracts are for resurfacing services on various roads of Nassau County. 383 covers roads in Garden City, East Garden City, Lake Success, East Meadow, Salisbury, and Uniondale. The term is 180 calendar days from the notice to proceed and is valued at approximately $6 million. Item 384-24 covers Woodmere, Elmont, Hempstead, Levittown, Rockville Center, Lawrence, and Inwood roads. The term is also 180 calendar days from the notice to proceed and is valued at approximately $5.7 million. Any questions?
This is all county roads only, or is the county going to share costs with the town for, like, the side roads in Levittown?
These are only county roads.
So I don't have to give you a list of side roads in Levittown?
Please do not.
But you could.
I certainly could.
You could in a second.
Okay.
Okay, are there any other questions? Okay, we could take both these contracts together.
I'll move.
Okay, Mo?
Second?
John, second. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 Thank
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, the contract's carried. The next is consideration of issuance of general obligation bonds or bond anticipation notes by Nassau County. I'll ask Connell to describe the borrowing, and then we want to bring up one issue related to that. Connell, thank you, and I just want to thank Connell, Evan, and the whole staff for their work on, I've never realized how much work goes into putting these things together and the back and forth with the county. And you've done a great job, Connell, and the whole staff, and I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you.
The county has informed NYFA of its desire to raise money to pay for certain general and sewer capital projects in the amount of approximately $226.5 million, plus cost of issuance through the sale of bonds or bond anticipation notes. The county is seeking NYFA's approval for the borrowing as required during the control period. The county, at the same time, would borrow an additional approximately $41.3 million worth of bonds, plus cost of issuance, which were approved at the December 2023 NYFA meeting, subject to the limitations in the resolution approving that amount of borrowing. The combined total would be approximately $267.8 million, plus the cost of issuance. Debt service following the transaction would be substantially consistent with the county's 24 through 27 multi-year financial plan projections. In addition, the county has indicated that all the projects have approved bond ordinances and that they plan to issue the bonds in late May. NYFA's approval shall be limited to only those items of projects that are eligible to be capitalized in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles and have an original period of probable usefulness of 5 years or greater, other than for public safety vehicles. With that, you're being asked to approve the county's proposed issuance of bonds or bond anticipation notes, subject to the terms and conditions outlined in the materials of the resolution, and I'm happy to address any questions you may have.
So this borrowing is in the multi-year financial plan projections?
It is. The debt service is consistent with that. There are projections, the projections are different from the projections, the actual amounts of borrowings and the timing, but the plan does indicate that those are really projections, and those may vary, but the debt service is consistent.
But effectively, those projections are sort of represent this borrowing.
They do. Again, the timing of when they thought they would borrow, there's more borrowing this spring than there was. They didn't do a fall borrowing. There's more borrowing this spring than they had anticipated. But again, because of certain savings from having not done that borrowing, the NYFA refunding, the county had done its own defeasance, various factors are keeping the debt service consistent with the debt service that was set forth in the multi-year plan.
So there's capacity, it's not punching through any caps, it's not creating
Not
a
with
lower
debt service,
surplus
no.
or a higher deficit.
Nope.
Now,
And sorry, one last, how much of the borrowing, what's the quantum of borrowing that's been accelerated relative to what was in the plan?
It's, I guess, from the fall borrowing in '23 through all of '24, I think it's $270 million, Steve, if that's right? Correct. $270 million of new money, so this borrowing is coming in just under $270 million.
And it was originally supposed to happen in the fall of '24?
Fall-
90, is this correct? 90 million was what had been assumed to be the fall borrowing, 70 plus 20 for sewer?
Fall 23 at 90 million.
Right. But we didn't do
So
fall
that part
23.
was delayed.
But we didn't
Right.
do fall 23.
Correct.
Correct,
Okay.
and
So
then,
it's delayed, okay.
plus this does pick up, though, like, sort of the schedule for the entire amount of '24, but because of the other factors, it's still, even if the county does borrow in the fall of '24, it's still consistent with the debt service schedule
Once they didn't pay interest.
in the multi-year plan.
just to point out to the directors that the county has made a request to NYFA that we consider extending the waiver to non-public safety and police vehicles as part of the borrowing. Now, I don't know if anyone from the county is here that wants to address that at all?
Good afternoon, Andy Persick, Budget Director for Nassau County. Yes, when we originally asked for the relief with the public safety vehicles, it came to our attention that we're going to have some other issues with borrowing for vehicles or not borrowing for vehicles. Our plan originally included borrowing for non-public safety vehicles. It kind of made a little conundrum for us with spending what I consider to be, even though the useful life is less than 5 years, our vehicles last a lot longer than that. So it's a local finance law thing that says we're allowed to do it, so we just want to be consistent so it doesn't create problems with having different, I will say, rules for different departments is what I would say, so.
Mr. Chairman, I think we specifically created inconsistency only for the public safety vehicles, and we knew we were excluding that class of vehicle in our last meeting and vote. I don't feel the need to change our guidance or our approach.
Thank you, Ian.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Yeah, I'm inclined to go, to agree with you, Chris. We did extend the waiver to public safety vehicles, which I think was appropriate. I just don't see any real reason to extend it any further. I don't know, Evan, do you want to comment in terms of staff's position, if any?
Sure. Well, I mean, just to remind perhaps the board, I don't think you need reminding, but the public, what was the reason for the restrictions to begin with? Well, the board has tried for some time to move the county away from issuing debt with short-term maturities, an expense which should be built into the operating budget and multi-year financial plan. Stated differently, the board felt that the capital budget should be preserved or reserved for the funding source for longer-term projects. As the county budget director, Andy Persick, just brought up, the local finance law does prescribe what's called the period of probable usefulness, which is kind of the amortization, allowed amortization for borrowing for vehicles to be 3 years. That's the so-called PPU, period of probable usefulness. Clearly, that's short. So regardless of how long the county keeps its vehicles in its fleet, the borrowing is still limited to the 3-year amortization schedule. So it's not so relevant to the decision of whether to allow the bonding, in my opinion.
So,
Yeah.
staff,
So, and the county does have resources available to fund the approximately $820,000 that is, we've been told is needed for these non-public safety vehicles. So, consequently, we see no compelling reason to deviate, for the board to deviate further from its position to have these restrictions in place.
and as I understand, the resolution that was drafted does not authorize a further change.
That's correct.
Right?
Excludes that
Correct.
request.
So
That's
we don't
right.
have to vote, we can just vote for the resolution as is.
Yeah, I'll move that resolution
I'll
as is.
second.
Okay, is there any discussion, further discussion on the part of the board? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, the borrowing resolution is adopted. Thank you, Connell, I appreciate it. Now we've got the adoption of, of retention and disposition schedule for New York local government records. John?
Good evening, John Chiara, General Counsel. This is really, since 2008, when the NYFA Board adopted its Records and Retention Schedule M1, there's been significant changes that are required for this board to adopt, changes to additional retention schedule. Based on that, in 2020 and 2022, with modifications to 2023, this gate is given all public authority, cities, counties, guidance on what they require municipal subdivisions of the state to adopt, and that is this retention guideline that is before you. So the staff is recommending, actually, the state's requiring that you adopt this.
And this conforms with their rules and guidelines?
Correct. The state requires basically all the subdivisions of the state, counties, towns, cities, below 500,000, and public authorities to adopt specific required retention guidelines and schedules. And this is the one before you is the one that they require.
So that makes it easy. I'll move to,
To agree with the.
I'll second it. Any discussion? All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay. Carl, before I just, you come on up. I just want to mention to the board that, that you should have gotten an email right now, in the last day or two, from the State Commission on Ethics, requiring financial disclosure. It's required by May 15th. If you have a reason for an exemption or need advice, you can certainly call John O'Connell to discuss it further. Just so you know, from my own experience, I'm not, as many of you know, I'm not the greatest person in technology. Kathy knows that well. And I called the Commission on Ethics because I have filed these disclosures for many, many years. And I want to do it in writing. And you can. They don't really say that. They give you the online instructions. But if you call the number on the online, on the sheet of paper giving you the online instructions, they will mail you a paper form. You can fill it out with your own hands and actually mail it back. So I just want to
Increasing the likelihood they'll review it.
well, that's,
And then you can't claim somebody else sent it by accident.
actually, I think it's harder to review it if it's handwritten. If it's online, you go right to the,
That's true, yeah.
right?
Okay,
And by the way, my
That's foul.
Chris,
Yeah.
my handwriting's
I
bad.
understand that.
It's really bad.
I
But,
submitted my form yesterday.
But Kathy, if you just wouldn't mind making sure that all the other directors that aren't here tonight receive that email.
I got it.
And that they conform, and obviously you can all do it online if you want. But if you want to do it in writing like me, you certainly are to do that. All right, Carl wants to give a couple of reports on cash and investments.
Correct.
Then I have a couple of things to say, and then we have an executive session.
All right, thank you and good evening. What you have before you is NYFA's cash basis report for receipts and expenditures through the first quarter of the calendar year.
I see.
We had budgeted for $3.6 million for the full year and withheld $900,000 to fund operations as well as for control period expenditures. If we look at our total operating expenses through the first 3 months, we're at a little over 28% of the year's budget. And for control period expenditures, we're at approximately a third of where we, at March 31st, for the full year. And that excludes a payment that was just made to Alvarez for work that was just completed. So that number will go up. Operational audits will go up as well as we start to engage firms for the audits that are mandated by the state. And we started off with just under $900,000, and we're ending up with just under $800,000. So we used approximately $100,000 of of cash balance in order to fund our expenditures. So, any questions with regards to the cash basis receipts and disbursements?
Carl, I just wanted to ask something, just make
Sure.
something clear. So we are, and just to be clear and disclose, I used to be chairman of the Nassau County IDA, Industrial Development Agency. So we were required by statute to audit the IDA, OTB, and the hospital.
Correct.
Correct, and we hired, and this is before I came here, we hired Deloitte and Touche.
Deloitte.
And Alvarez and Marcel to do the
Correct.
IDA. How lucky I was. And anyway, so that requirement was met, the audits were done. But we're now required to do audits again this year.
Years, right.
For the past 2 years.
Every two.
No, it's just
Every-
really, every 2 years, and it's really, it's an operational audit. It's different than a financial audit, which they already have independently. What this does is this focuses on specific areas of operation or performance and makes sure that they're in compliance with, with what they're supposed to be doing. For example, for the IDA, making sure that projects are board approved. That would be one in particular. Or in the case of the hospital, that grants are properly expended, for the intended purpose, things like that.
So, just to make a point, and I want to put it on the record that I am going to recuse myself from any audit regarding the IDA because I was head of it.
For at least a rotation, right, for at least one.
Yeah, for one
For the
rotation,
cycle.
exactly, because it did cover me. But it seems to me, my experience, having been at the IDA and now at NYFA, is that we're basically spending a lot of money to duplicate what the state Office of Authorities and Budget Office does. The IDA and most public authorities have to file reports in terms of compliance, in terms of, they audit us all the time. So a lot of what we're doing and ultimately paying for, which is in the end paid for by the taxpayers, is already being done by the state. And one of the things that I'm going to talk to some of our delegation about is possibly repealing that requirement of NIFA. It's just another layer of work, and while we don't mind doing it, ultimately we're responsible for it, and it's already really being done by the state. So I just want to make that clear that we are going to go through with this as if we have to do it this year, but maybe in the closing days of the session, when everyone wants to go home to do whatever they want to do, like running for reelection, that we can get them to repeal that. But right now, it is a statute and we have to comply with it.
And importantly, it was unfunded then and now.
Right.
It was a mandate that didn't come with it.
That's a good point.
Any support for the bill.
Or we could save $500,000.
Right, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, thanks.
The next page shows our investments that are held at March 31st, which are principally Treasury bills and notes, and a couple of Freddie Mac bills that are all due or to mature either on May 14th or May 15th, which is right on or just before our interest payment that's required for debt service. What happens with this is that we withhold also for principal payments that'll be due on November 15th. So what we'll do is after the interest payments are made, we roll over the remainder to mature on November 15th when principal interest is once again due. Are there any questions with regards to our investments?
Any questions, Carl? Thank you.
Thank you.
Just a couple of points, and then we'll go into executive session. I want to let the board know that, there is a continuing dialogue with the hospital about a number of items, and I just want to report to the board a couple of things. One, that currently their cash balance is about $31 million, which is better than expected, but could change at any minute. It's still a very low amount, and they still have a number of payrolls. They have a payroll a week from Friday, 2 in May. And so just as an example, I'm not saying this will happen, if they didn't get any further significant money between now and the end of May, without any further state aid, they wouldn't be able to make the second payroll in May. So the concerns about the hospital are still very much alive. We are having discussions with both the state and the hospital about the future. To be truthful with you, there has been some movement on the part of the hospital in some areas. There does seem to be universal agreement that the board, the governance structure at the hospital, and the board membership has to and should be changed. And there is general agreement with the hospital about that. And the governor has sent a letter, her appointment secretary has sent a letter to the 2 legislative leaders in Albany and the county executive and the legislative leaders here in Nassau County to recommend names for appointments for those positions that are either vacant, holdovers, or about to become vacant, because as I understand it, several vacancies or holdover positions will occur on May 1st. So this is a great opportunity to change the governance structure of the board. It's going to take a lot of effort on a lot of people's part. And I want to indicate the governor took a leadership role in this, and I'm pleased to announce that in discussions with the chairman of the hospital's board, Matt Bruderman, they are in concurrence with that. Obviously, we haven't agreed on names, but I think the potential is there to put some people in the hospital that have expertise that can help govern that institution. I also want to indicate that I am expecting in the next several days the Department of Health to issue a formal response to the hospital's response to their late March letter. and we'll wait to see what it says. You know, I don't want to speak for the Department of Health, but obviously, you know, we're not seeing the kind of compliance that was requested in the Department of Health's letter. They can speak for themselves. There has been some progress made, but certainly not enough. The other thing, but those discussions will continue. And, you know, as I told the board, some of the members, I talk to them frequently, is that, you know, right now, there are budget talks going on in Albany, which hopefully are coming to a conclusion over the next few days. And the Nassau University Medical Center is being discussed in terms of what if any aid they would get, what programs they're responsive to. But I will tell you that there will be very significant strings attached to whatever aid the hospital ultimately gets. And from my perspective, that aid is not forthcoming until the medical center complies with all of the provisions that the health department, their regulator, has required. But we are keeping on top of this. Carl, I want to thank you and staff too for continuing to monitor the program and at the hospital. And we will give a much further and thorough report to the board at our May meeting. I also want to say, and maybe I shouldn't say this, but I'm going to say it. I was very disturbed to receive a mailing, which everyone probably should have received, from the county regarding criticism of the governor for claiming that the state has reduced funding to the hospital and it wants to close the hospital. I just want to make it very clear. And while, again, I don't speak for the governor, I don't speak for the state or the health department, the governor and her staff people have no interest whatsoever in closing the hospital. And that the numbers in that mailer, which you can look at yourself, are completely erroneous. The fact is that the state has increased funding to the Nassau Medical Center, and that does not include the fact that last year the state gave $60 million towards the debt that the hospital owes to the NYSHIP health insurance plan. Right now, the NYSHIP debt is close to $330 million. It would be $390 million if the state hadn't stepped in. So this whole notion that somehow the state is screwing up the hospital, we want it to close, that's completely erroneous. And I feel obligated to say that. You know, if we all want to help the hospital, we need to work together and not throw bombs at each other. It's just completely inappropriate. And I think it's an improper and inappropriate expenditure of taxpayer dollars. This is a mailer that was funded and paid for by the taxpayers. And if this were a lot more specific expenditure, I'm sure that this board would have rejected that expenditure. But it was already mailed out. I just want to put it on the record, and I've said this publicly, that it's a complete waste of money, and in fact, is a step backwards in all of us trying to keep the hospital open and explore options as to how to do it. If the county wanted to help the hospital, take the money used on the leaflet and apply it to helping the hospital. With that, I don't know if anyone else have any further statements. So I will now entertain a motion for the directors to conduct an executive session
So moved.
pursuant to, I have to finish. I'll put this on the record. Very important, because I know that,
Accept it as if read?
okay, Chris, everyone's trying to cut me off. You must have something to eat in there. According to Public Officers Law 105, to consider the financial history of a particular corporation and certain matters related to proposed, pending, or current litigation. Is there a motion?
Moved.
Moved.
Second.
Okay, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. We will come back. I don't anticipate taking any votes. I do want to indicate, before we go into executive session, that the next meeting of the board of NYPA will be May 21st, 6:30. same location. And with that, we'll go into executive session. As I said, you can, if you want to sit, you can sit, but I don't foresee any. Okay. So no votes were taken, as I indicated. Do I hear a motion to go back into general public session? John, I'll second it. Now we move to adjourn, right, Connell?
Made.
All those in favor, I make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
As I said, the next meeting of the board will be May 21st.